What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Leader of Mexico's Sinaloa drug cartel arrested in Texas. According to an article from BBC, one of the world's most powerful drug lords, El Mayo, Ismael Zambada, leader of the Mexico's Sinaloa cartel, has been arrested by U.S. federal agents in El Paso, Texas. Zambada, 76, founded the criminal organization with El Chapo, who is currently jailed in the U.S. Arrested with Zambada on Thursday was El Chapo's son. El Chapo, yeah! In February, Zambada was charged by U.S. prosecutors with conspiracy to make and distribute fentanyl, a drug more powerful than heroin that has been blamed for the U.S. opioid crisis. I think fentanyl and prescription drugs. Citing Mexican and U.S. officials, the Wall Street Journal reports that Zambada was tricked into boarding a plane by a high-ranking Sinaloa member following a months-long operation by Homeland Security Investigations and the FBI, believing that he was going to inspect airstrips in South Mexico. Zambada was instead flown to a private airfield outside of El Paso, Texas. Lopez was also arrested alongside Zambada by federal agents when the plane landed. Officials said that Zambada was lured into the private plane by false pretenses by Lopez. This was reported by the New York Times. Mexico's security Minister Rosa Rodriguez said his government was made aware of the detention of Zambada and Lopez by the U.S. government, but that the Mexican authorities were not involved in the operation and operation to apprehend him. U.S. government must complete a repeat report, blah, blah, blah. Fentanyl is the deadliest drug threat in the country, has ever feared, and Justice Department will not rest until every single cartel leader and member associated responsible for poisoning our communities is held accountable. Massive influx of fentanyl is happening simply because the borders are wide open. This is something to look at, too. Borders are. Look into the fentanyl crisis and distribution directly coming out of the open borders. U.S. authorities have previously noted that fentanyl is the leading cause of death in Americans 18 to 45. U.S. Drug Administration, the DEA, has offered a reward up to $15 million for Zambada's capture. During El Chapo's trial in 2019, his lawyers accused Zambada of bribing the entire Mexican government in exchange for living openly without fear of prosecution. According to the U.S. State Department, Zambada is also the owner of several legitimate businesses in Mexico, including a large milk company, a bus line and hotel, as well as real estate assets. Don't wait to invest in real estate. Buy real estate and wait. Alongside fentanyl charges, he also faces charges in the U.S. ranging from drug trafficking, murder, kidnapping, money laundering, and organized crime. Let's jump into this true crime from Arizona.
Tonight, we're learning two major leaders in the Sinaloa cartel are in custody because of a stunning case of betrayal. One of those leaders, the son of the famous drug lord El Chapo, flipped and worked with law enforcement.
The DEA also says that the Sinaloa cartel directly operates through Arizona. These arrests, they say, could mean a huge shakeup for the fentanyl crisis here and within the country as a whole. True crime correspondent Brianna Whitney joining us live now. Wow.
Wow is the right word. That's what people are really saying on social media. This started yesterday when we heard about the arrest, and then the new developments today are pretty wild. These arrests have truly taken down the top of the Sinaloa cartel. Ever since El Chapo's capture 8 years ago, Ismael El Mayo Zambada has taken over. He thought he was going flying to look at property in Mexico, but soon learned he was part of an inside scheme and ended up in handcuffs, along with El Chapo's son, who was in on the plan with the United States the whole time. The co-founder of the notoriously ruthless Sinaloa cartel, now behind bars after a covert operation by the U.S. and internal deception.
On Thursday, the Justice Department took into custody in El Paso 2 more alleged leaders of the Sinaloa cartel, one of the most violent and powerful drug trafficking organizations in the world.
76-year-old Ismael El Mayo Zambada put in handcuffs Thursday after being duped allegedly at the hands of Joaquin Guzman, son of infamous and imprisoned drug kingpin El Chapo. We learned Zambada thought he was flying to see property in northern Mexico yesterday, but instead was flown to a small airport outside El Paso and quickly arrested. He's looking at charges including fentanyl trafficking, money laundering, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit murder. This part of a deal Guzman struck with the United States government on behalf of him and his brother, according to a senior law enforcement official. Even with that deal, Guzman was still arrested, facing charges for trafficking large quantities of cocaine, heroin, meth, and other drugs. U.S. officials say the Sinaloa cartel runs the largest and most violent fentanyl trafficking operation in the world. According to the DEA's 2024 National Drug Threat Assessment, the Sinaloa cartel exerts near total control over the border region south of Arizona, giving the cartel easy access to the San Luis Rio, Colorado, and Nogales ports of entry. It goes on to say, quote, DEA reporting indicates that the Sinaloa cartel stages illegal drug shipments near the Arizona ports of entry and uses those entry points not only as the base for onward shipments of illicit drugs to areas across the United States, but also to smuggle fake trademarked fentanyl pills for consolidation in the Los Angeles area.
El Mayo and Guzman Lopez join a growing list of Sinaloa cartel leaders and associates who the Justice Department is holding accountable in the United States.
A former Arizona FBI agent says with these recent arrests, he expects to see some violence within the cartel as the power structure realigns. But Zambada has been quoted in the past saying plans are in place to keep the cartel operations.
Of course. Of course. You don't run a massive organization without having a backup plan, right?
Going if he is captured. As of now, we don't know why Guzman turned on Zambada. Guzman is scheduled to appear before a judge next week in Chicago.
Probably because he
Zambada
was
already
being a
pleaded
punk.
not guilty in El Paso.
Probably because he was being a punk, man. That's why he turned on him, man. And maybe the FBI and the DEA offered him something in return to get Zambada, but real interesting. More Americans are dying from fentanyl overdoses as the fourth wave of the opioid epidemic crashes through every community in every corner of the country. After 6 years, or it was 6 years ago, blah blah blah. Let's read that again. More Americans than ever are dying from fentanyl overdoses as the fourth wave of the opioid epidemic crashes through every community in every corner of the country. In 2023, that year, the US witnessed a grim milestone for the first time ever. Drug overdoses killed more than 100,000 people across the country in one single year. Of those deaths, more than 66% were tied to fentanyl, a synthetic opioid 50 times stronger and more powerful than heroin. Fentanyl is a pharmaceutical drug that can be prescribed by doctors to treat severe pain, but the drug is also illegally manufactured by criminal gangs. Most of illegal fentanyl found in the US is trafficked from Mexico using chemicals sourced from China. according to the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. In 2010, less than 40 people died from drug overdoses across the country, and less than 10% of those deaths were tied to fentanyl. Back then, deaths were mostly driven by heroin and prescription opioids. The contrast of the outlying study that was released through the BBC by researchers at the University of California, UCLA, uh, that examines trends in US overdoses from 2010 to 2021 using data compiled of the US Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. Fentanyl continues to be a growing problem in the United States. The rising fentanyl related deaths, first observed in 2015, that data shows. Since then, the drug has spread across the United States and death rates have surplus. In 2018, around 80% of fentanyl overdoses happened east of the Mississippi River. In 2019, fentanyl became part of the drug supply in the Western US, and suddenly this population that had been isolated from it is exposed, and death rates started to go up. When fentanyl first arrived in the US as part of the illegal drug supply, a lot of people did not want it. But the synthetic opioid became widely available as it is cheaper to produce compared to other drugs. It also is highly addictive, meaning people who struggle with substance abuse are exposed to it and often seek it out to avoid painful withdrawals. Across the US, the studies identify that states like Alaska, West Virginia, Rhode Island, Hawaii, California, as having the highest rate of overdoses involving fentanyls over any other drugs. The article goes on to say that no longer just a white problem. Opioid crisis has been traditionally been portrayed as a white problem. Studies, however, reveal that African Americans are dying of the combination of fentanyl and other drug use at higher rates across age gaps, groups, and geographical lines. I've actually had a lot of uh, colleagues of mine that I grew up with become addicted to opioids, then become addicted to meth and heroin, and then fentanyl, um, simply because the use of fentanyl, or just like this article is saying, the fentanyl is cheaper to buy and then also helps reduce withdrawals. Um, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. I'd love to know, uh, did it's is the war on drugs is not it's not doing nothing. They've been doing the war on drugs since the Reagan administration, and it seems like drugs have just increased. Um, I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes there, but I'd love to know your thoughts, or the powers that be. There's a lot of things going on there. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Drop your comments down below, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one.